What if I told you that everything you've been through, every moment of pain, every betrayal, every night you cried yourself to sleep believing you were broken, what if all of that wasn't happening to you, but for you? What if your deepest wounds weren't evidence of your weakness, but the raw material for your greatest transformation? I'm about to share with you an ancient process that's been hidden in plain sight for thousands of years. A process that the mystics, the shamans, the wounded healers throughout history have used to transform their suffering into their superpower. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't spiritual bypassing. This is the alchemical process, and it's the secret to turning your trauma into your greatest source of wisdom and power. But here's what I need you to understand before we go any deeper. This process isn't comfortable, it's not quick, and it's definitely not what the mainstream healing industry wants you to know, because if you truly understood this process, you wouldn't need to stay broken forever. You wouldn't need to identify as a victim for the rest of your life. You would become dangerous to the systems that profit from your pain. 3 months ago, I was lying in bed at 3 a.m. and I had what I can only describe as a download. I suddenly understood why I had to go through everything I went through. Why I had to be the golden child who learned to disappear. Why I had to experience spiritual warfare. Why I had to feel like I was dying from anxiety night after night. It wasn't random. It wasn't punishment. It was initiation. If you're ready to understand the deeper purpose behind your pain, if you're ready to stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the alchemist of your own transformation, hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video and tell me in the comments below, what wound in your life do you think might actually be your greatest gift in disguise? Because I'm about to show you how to find out. Let me take you back to medieval times, to the laboratories of the alchemists. While everyone thought they were trying to turn lead into gold, they were actually documenting something far more profound. They were mapping the process of human transformation. They were showing us how to turn the lead of our suffering into the gold of our wisdom. The alchemical process has 4 stages, and every single person who has ever truly transformed their life has gone through these exact same stages, whether they knew it or not. The first stage is called Nigredo, the blackening. This is the dark night of the soul. This is when everything falls apart. This is when you realize that the life you've been living, the person you thought you were, the beliefs you held about reality, none of it is real. For me, Nigredo began when I was 27 years old, standing in front of my narcissistic father, finally speaking my truth for the first time in my life. When I called him out for his emotional blackmail, when I watched his face contort with rage, when I felt that familiar paralysis of terror wash over me, that was my Nigredo beginning. Everything I thought I knew about family, about love, about my place in the world, it all started crumbling. But here's what nobody tells you about the dark night of the soul. It's not happening to destroy you. It's happening to destroy the false version of you that was never real in the first place. The golden child, the people pleaser, the one who learned to betray himself to survive, that version of you has to die for the real you to be born. Nigredo is where most people get stuck. They think the darkness is the destination. They think the pain is the point. They build their entire identity around their trauma, and they never move to the second stage. But the darkness isn't where you're supposed to stay. It's where you're supposed to compost. The second stage is albedo, the whitening. This is where you start to separate what's real from what's illusion. This is where you begin to see the patterns, to understand the programming, to recognize the difference between your authentic self and the conditioned self that was created by your trauma. For me, albedo began during those nights in 2022 when I was doing my inner work. When I was lying in bed, feeling the trauma moving through my body like electricity, learning to breathe into the pain instead of running from it, I started to see how my father's rage wasn't about me. It was about his own unhealed wounds. I started to understand how my mother's enabling wasn't love, it was her own trauma response. I began to separate their stuff from my stuff. This is where you start to reclaim your power. This is where you realize that you're not broken. You're just carrying wounds that aren't even yours. This is where you start to see that your sensitivity isn't a weakness. It's a superpower that was suppressed. Your anger isn't something to be ashamed of. It's your life force trying to protect you. Your intuition isn't crazy. It's the wisest part of you that's been silenced. But albedo isn't the end either. Because understanding your trauma intellectually isn't the same as transforming it. You can know all about your childhood wounds and still find yourself repeating the same patterns. You can understand narcissistic abuse and still attract narcissists. Knowledge without integration is just spiritual materialism. The third stage is citrinitis, the yellowing. This is where you start to integrate the wisdom from your wounds. This is where you begin to see how your deepest pain has given you your greatest gifts. This is where you realize that your trauma wasn't just something that happened to you. It was your initiation into becoming a healer, a guide, a wounded healer who can help others navigate their own darkness. For me, citrinitis began when I started my YouTube channel. When I realized that my story wasn't just my story. It was a map for others who were lost in the same darkness I had navigated. When I understood that my years of spiritual warfare had taught me how to protect others from the same attacks. When I saw that my experience with narcissistic abuse had given me the ability to see through manipulation in ways that could help others break free. This is where you start to understand that you didn't go through what you went through so you could stay small and broken. You went through it so you could become strong enough to help others who are still trapped in the darkness you escaped. Your wounds become your wisdom. Your pain becomes your purpose. Your trauma becomes your testimony. But even citrinitis isn't the final destination, because integration without embodiment is just another form of spiritual bypassing. You can understand your purpose and still not be living it fully. You can know your gifts and still not be sharing them with the world. The fourth and final stage is rubedo, the reddening. This is where you become the embodiment of your transformation. This is where you stop talking about your healing and start living it. This is where you stop being someone who survived trauma and start being someone who transforms trauma. This is where you become the alchemist. Rubedo is where I am now. It's where I'm speaking to you from. It's the place where I can stand in front of a camera and share the deepest, darkest parts of my story without shame, without fear, without needing your approval or validation. It's where I can look at my narcissistic father and feel compassion instead of rage. It's where I can see my wife's criticism as her own trauma response instead of taking it personally. It's where I can turn my pain into content that helps others transform their lives. But here's what I need you to understand about rubedo. It's not a destination you arrive at and then you're done. It's a way of being. It's a commitment to continuous transformation. It's the understanding that every challenge, every setback, every moment of pain is just more raw material for your alchemical process. Let me share with you the 3 keys to accelerating your alchemical transformation. The first key is embracing the darkness. Stop trying to fix yourself. Stop trying to get back to who you were before the trauma. That person is gone, and that's a good thing. The person you're becoming is infinitely more powerful than the person you were before you were broken open. The second key is finding the gift in the wound. Every trauma you've experienced has given you a superpower. Your hypervigilance has made you incredibly intuitive. Your people-pleasing has made you deeply empathetic. Your experience with manipulation has made you able to see through lies that others can't detect. Your sensitivity to energy has made you a natural healer. Stop seeing these as weaknesses and start seeing them as the gifts they are. The third key is sharing your medicine. Your story isn't just your story. Your healing isn't just for you. The wisdom you've gained from your wounds is medicine that the world desperately needs. But you have to be willing to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to be seen. You have to be willing to risk being judged in order to help others who are still trapped in the darkness you've escaped. Here's what the alchemical process taught me that changed everything. Your trauma wasn't a mistake. It wasn't random. It wasn't punishment. It was your curriculum. It was the exact set of experiences you needed to become who you're meant to be. Every narcissist who hurt you was a teacher showing you how not to treat others. Every moment you felt powerless was preparing you to help others reclaim their power. Every night you cried yourself to sleep was composting into the compassion you now have for others who are suffering. But here's the part that most people miss. The alchemical process isn't just about healing your own wounds. It's about becoming a catalyst for others' transformation. It's about becoming someone who can hold space for others' darkness without being consumed by it. It's about becoming a wounded healer who can guide others through their own alchemical process. This is why I do what I do. This is why I share my story. This is why I create content that goes deeper than surface-level healing. Because I understand that your pain has a purpose. Your wounds have wisdom. Your trauma has transformed you into someone who can help transform others. In my next video, I'm going to show you how to take this alchemical understanding and apply it to breaking generational curses. We're going to explore how your individual transformation ripples out to heal your entire bloodline. We're going to talk about how you become the one who stops the cycle of trauma from being passed down to future generations. But for now, I want you to look at your life differently. I want you to stop seeing yourself as a victim of your circumstances and start seeing yourself as an alchemist in training. I want you to stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "How can I use this to help others?" Your wounds are not your weakness. They are your credentials. Your pain is not your prison. It is your portal. Your trauma is not your identity. It is your initiation into becoming the person you were always meant to be. The lead of your suffering is ready to become the gold of your wisdom. The question is, are you ready to become the alchemist?